Welcome to the coaching table. I'm Thomas Thompson, and what I get to do is to help leaders like you have the conversations that you're not having so you can lead yourself well. Because I believe that when you lead yourself well, you'll lead those around you well. Well, today's conversation is the third in a series I'm just calling Decisive Clarity. Our decisions define us. In fact, that's the core of being a leader is you're going to be put in a position where you have to lead teams and people through decisions. So how can we get clarity on those? How can we get better at those? And I've been sharing over these last few coaching tables just some keys and some principles that I've used in decision making and that I've led my teams to use to help them make decisions with decisive clarity. Today is key number 3. Go back to the future. If you know me at all, you know my favorite movie is Back to the Future. I love it. I think it's the perfect screenplay. I love to watch it every year. Back to the Future, no spoiler alert, it's been out for a while, but Marty McFly, a teenager, gets thrown back in time accidentally by 30 years, and he meets his own parents and begins to interfere with how they met, which would end up resulting in him not being born and a whole cascade of events. And so the movie is really Marty taking his best efforts to try to right what was wrong and make decisions in the past that are going to help him in the future or help him in what's his present. And now I'm getting kind of brain twisted here. So let me pull back to the point. A question you want to think through in decisions is this: what would future me wish I had done? What decision can I make today that's going to have the impact that I wish I had in the future? See, you're handing off your leadership to somebody at some point. And sometimes that somebody is you. Think about this, like in 5 years, you're going to hand over your leadership here, and you may hand it to somebody else, or maybe handing over to you. And so if it's you, what do you wish you had done? I have a client I'm working with that's working through a transition and realized that they are leaving the position that they're in. And I said, hey, let me shift your mindset. You just moved from being a marathoner to a relay runner. You've got to stop thinking long term, and you have to start thinking, what would the person that I'm handing this baton off to wish I had done now? Think about that in terms of your finances. What do you need to get in order? Think about that in terms of your staff. Is there anyone you need to promote or move on or start training or actually let go? What are the decisions now that future you or future someone is going to thank you for? I think this is especially lands on the area of having to fire people. Unfortunately and regrettably, I've had to fire people in my time. And yet it's one of those things that what fueled me is, what do I wish a year from now that I had done? What would future me wish I had done in this situation? And it really helped me have the clarity and the courage to pull the trigger on those. So what you're doing when you say, what would future me want me to do, is you're becoming your own personal advisor. You're looking back and giving yourself advice. You're trying to emotionally separate yourself from it. And you're asking questions like this: hey, what would a great leader do in this situation? Hey, what would someone who's following me wish I had done in this situation? What is it that future us would thank us for? I'm telling you, this principle has driven me in so many tough decisions. What is the decision that years from now we'll look back and wish we had made? This has been a tipping point for me sometimes. That when I realize that one day I'm going to look back on this decision, I'm going to be thankful, I'm going to be regretful, I'm going to wonder, why didn't I make that decision when I did? And so how can I begin to serve future me? Now let me give you a quick exercise that was developed by Susie Welch that might help you when you have a tough decision to make, okay? So it's a decision where you're thinking about 2 or 3 different options. Pick one of those options, A, B, or C. Let's say you pick B. You say, okay, I have chosen B, I'm not choosing A or C. And then she calls this exercise the 10-10-10 exercise. Write down all the possible consequences of this decision in the next 10 minutes. If I make this decision right now, what happens in the next 10 minutes? And then write down all the consequences of that decision in the next 10 months. What are the things that happen? And then write down, what are the consequences of this decision, if I make it, in the next 10 years? What I love about this decision is, the first 10 minutes starts to get at the emotion of that. What does this decision feel like? How do I feel about having made this decision? The 10 months page really gets to some of the practical steps. What would need to take place here for this decision to move forward? And the next 10 years is one of legacy. How do I really want to invest the next 10 years of my life? So for example, let's say that you're considering moving to another home. As you think about the next 10 minutes, if you make the decision, we are going to move to this city and take this job. In the next 10 minutes, what does that decision feel like? Do you instantly hate it? Do you instantly love it? Do you feel a pressure's lifted? Do you feel a pressure's been added? In the next 10 months, what are the things that need to take place? Well, gosh, I've got to get my house ready to sell. I've got to get it on the market. I've got to look for a new product. You start thinking through those kinds of things. And then you think about the next 10 years. Wow, what would it be like for me to spend the next 10 years of my life stewarding my leadership in this city? And I would repeat that exercise for each one of the decisions, for A and for C as well. When you're complete with this, I hope it will give you some insight and clarity on the choices that you're facing. So here's your coaching table question for this week. What would future me wish I had decided? I'd love to hear what you're learning. I'd love to hear what you're thinking through. You can scroll down and click on the little email there and shoot me a quick note. We can start a conversation about that. Well, I'll be back next week with more on the topic of decisive clarity. But until then, you're always welcome at the coaching table.